Hello, this is Teens Talk Politics, and I'm back again for another weekly news episode. Today, we're going to be covering all the news that's happened in the past week. I'm joined by my co host Sam, like usual.
Sup?
And I'm sorry we did not get an upload out on Tuesday. The audio did get messed up, and we lost the audio. So we did not have time to record that episode. So sadly, we were not able to get that episode out in time. However, we've gotten one coming for today and on Saturday. So just look out for those two. Tomorrow will be about 9/11. So, anyways, we're gonna jump in, and the first one we're gonna be talking about is a pretty major scandal, and it's directly involving Joe Manchin. And this is the EpiPen scandal. I don't know if anyone's heard of this one, but basically, Joe Manchin's daughter is involved with Pfizer, trying to get their opponent, their main opposition in the market, out
Mhm.
by buying the business. And now that Pfizer bought the opposition to uh, Mayan, is that what it's called? What's it called? It's called Mylan. I think that's how you pronounce it, Mylan.
Mhm.
Which Joe Manchin's daughter, I believe, is the former CEO of that company and works directly with the CEO of Pfizer. Pfizer used to be invested in the company that was the opposition or the main market competitor of myelin, which is which creates EpiPens. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but they bought the opposition to myelin, so now the myelin can raise their prices because they're the only main company making EpiPens, and they've raised it to over $600, so they make more profit. And this is all in direct connection with Pfizer is going to make more money because they have the other business that was the other competitor, but now that they're working together, both companies can raise their prices because they're
Mhm.
not competing against each other because they're in a partnership. Meaning EpiPen prices are going to go up. However, the people that have allergies, that's not going to change. People are going to continually have to buy EpiPens because it could be a lifesaver, but they're just going to make more and more money just because of what Pfizer has decided to do with myelin. And I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm going to continue pronouncing it myelin. If I'm doing it wrong, just tell me. But yes, this is a direct connection with Joe Manchin because of the relationship with his daughter, and he's defended him or defended her in multiple interviews, saying, "Oh yeah, she's a nice person," and I don't think it's much of his fault. Yes, you're going to defend your daughter; it's basically what you do as a dad.
Mhm.
However, he really is going to take a lot of slack for this, even as he has no dealings really, as far as we're aware, with this company. Pfizer was not involved in direct contact at all with Joe Manchin, as far as we're aware. And yes, Joe Manchin's going to get a lot of slack for this, and I don't think he really deserves that because of his involvement. With very little involvement, there's little that he could have done to stop the scandal from happening. So, Sam, what do you think about this major scandal that's really rocking Joe Manchin's political career, at least of his approval rating?
Yeah, I think it it's unfortunate that Joe Manchin was put in the spotlight for this, but it's not cool that his daughter is profiting off of people's potentially life saving technology. And I'm sure you have an EpiPen, right, Andrew? And
Yeah.
and you're fortunate enough to have good enough insurance that you can pay for one for a relatively low price. And but a lot of Americans who were simply just born with this disease, like it's not their fault for being born that they can't do this. If anything, it is extremely messed up that you're profiting off of people's birth, just at circumstances. So
Yeah.
it's
And
really messed up, but and it's as you're saying, definitely going to take a toll on Manchin's political standings and approval ratings. And even though it wasn't his direction, and obviously Joe Manchin's wife also had um, correlations with this scandal, which also doesn't even help. Um, and
yeah.
later we'll be talking about Joe Manchin and his recent ultimatum to Senate Democrats um, about especially the thing bill, and I think people are going to take him a lot less seriously after his kid did this, and he's been not to say involved, but he's been in the limelight of this kind of major scandal, and so it's definitely going to take a toll on what on his agenda and what he's going to be able to do, and obviously his improvement ratings.
Right, and another thing that they've forced people to do is you have to buy two at a time, which works in a lot of situations.
Hmm.
For example, I have a peanut allergy. It's helpful to have an EpiPen with my parents and an EpiPen with me at all times, so it's helpful to have two. However, in many situations, there is no reason for you to have two EpiPens, but they're forcing you to purchase two due to the new policy they have with these companies. And yes, Joe Manchin has promised his West Virginians in a lot of his campaign ads and promises that he's going to lower drug prices. And I don't think this is the way to go about it. Yes, he probably didn't foresee this happening with people in his family. However, politically, it doesn't look very good for him. I do not think he's going to run in 2024. I
Hmm.
think he's going to retire. However,
Especially after this.
well, he's done a lot of other things that are adding up to this. How
Well, no way he's going to do it again. No way he's going to
And
run.
the reason I
He
think he's
can't
not
run
going to
after
run
this.
again is one, he's been here since 2011, I believe. He's been in the Senate since
Hmm.
2011. He's already served 2 terms. I think at this point,
Yeah.
West Virginia shifted so much to the right, and with the amount of bills that Joe Manchin has voted with the Democrat Party, and with this whole Trump wing of the Republican Party slowly but surely getting up ground, especially since 2016. Now they're less bipartisan. Yes, he was elected back in 2018. That was only 3 years ago. However, I think it's
Yeah.
shifting more and more to the right every single day, really. And I think by 2024, it's going to be no
Yeah.
hope.
There's no. Yeah, you raise a good point. There's no room for bipartisan, bipartisan slash moderate Democrats, especially. I mean, not Democrats, but just moderate senators in general. Especially as you were saying, the right becomes more conservative, and the lines are being a lot more clear. And so you raise a good argument that Joe Manchin doesn't have that much longer left.
Yeah, and Democrats are going to have a tough time trying to fill that seat. Not necessarily in West
Hmm.
Virginia. There's really no chance of a Democrat winning there.
You can't.
But I'm
Yeah, you
talking
just
about, okay,
can't.
where are we going to make up that loss in 2024? What seats are up? We could probably pick up Florida, maybe, depending on the political climate there. We could probably pick up Texas. So you have to look at states that, okay, where can we pick up a seat if we're going to lose one in West Virginia? Yes, this is off topic, but I think this all connects to what's next for Joe Manchin after this scandal that he's not directly involved with, but his daughter is. What's next? And Sam did bring up a point of how his wife is actually involved. And this is because she is, let me look so I don't get this wrong. She is just something for the school system. I'm looking, and I don't see it. Oh, here we go. She is the. Um, why can I not find it? Okay, while I look for this, basically she's in the education system. Here it is. She's the National Association of School Board of Education. She's the head of that committee. And what she's doing is that she's requiring all schools to stock ibuprofen, which is what the EpiPen really comes with, which is going to help her daughter profit off of the public funds coming towards their way, trying to stock up on ibuprofen for all the schools. And this is just another way that they're going to gain money, not just from private citizens that are trying to get an EpiPen for their allergic reactions, and also for schools and government money that are trying to stock up on ibuprofen for the schools. And I think the way they're trying to get money is very greedy, and like we said, and we're going to continue to mention this does not look good on Joe
Yeah.
Manchin.
Yeah, especially since Joe Manchin and his wife have government jobs. This is not looking good
Right.
for the
And
Manchin
because we
family.
have a lot to get through, we're going to move on to the next one. The next story that we're going to be covering, it's going to be about Biden imposing new vaccine mandates. As of the time of recording, this came out only hours ago, but basically what he's going to do is if you have employees above the number of 100, so if you have more than 100 employees in your privately owned business, you have to make sure that they're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, or they get tested on a weekly basis. This is a humongous chunk of citizens. And the fact that he's doing this, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is very good because it basically forces you to get vaccinated. Because who really, just be honest, who wants to get tested every single week?
Mm-hmm.
It's unlikely. And some
And it's also pushing a beyond reasonable doubts because any argument against this is now just incredibly stupid, especially with
right, well, he
recent
couldn't do it
Pfizer
without
FDA
FDA approval,
approval.
but
Mm-hmm. Well, now he can't make
right. And
now the opposition can't
another
really
thing I
make
want to
another
mention
argument for it.
is one business that is doing this and has to basically because it's required is Fox News. Every single anchor they have on the air has been fully vaccinated, whether it's Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, uh, and all these major, okay, it's your body, do whatever, unless it comes to abortion, and then no, you can't do whatever. They've all been fully vaccinated. And the propaganda that they've put it on their show
That is
about, oh,
hilarious.
vaccine, oh, it hasn't been fully tested, oh, should you get it? It's up to you. Maybe you shouldn't get it. It doesn't matter. I think it's kind of ironic in a way because they've been fully vaccinated, but that's not what they're spouting on their news channels. They're not encouraging people to get vaccinated. Yes, Sean Hannity
Mm-hmm.
originally said, "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to get the vaccine. I'm not sure if you should get the vaccine." Now he's more about, "Okay, you should get the vaccine." However, it took a long time. Tucker Carlson has not reached that point. He is not enforcing people to get vaccinated. He's not trying to encourage it in any way. He's trying to make it seem like it, it's it's fine either way, whether or not you get vaccinated or not. And I think that doesn't really hurt his. It hurts his audience, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to hurt the COVID cases. It's going to hurt how quickly we get back to normal. It's going to hurt the economy. So he needs to look at
Yeah,
this. He's fully vaccinated.
yeah. Well,
Biden
because
is now basically forcing everyone, unless you want to get tested every week, to get fully vaccinated if you work for an employer with over 100 employees, which is a lot of people.
this this is, I feel like, so major that it possibly could put an end to this pandemic. This move is very big. Like, it could seriously put this pandemic to, like, to the end, at
Well,
least in
you
the United States. Because I don't know about you, but I'm sick of this pandemic. And with Fox News anchors openly saying that you should get the vaccine, you can kind of see a turn in the tide of the way that the
Yeah, but you
coverage
also have
and
to
support
think
of
about
these
how many
vaccines
people are
have been going.
self-employed. Whether or not you have a small company that you're just a small farming company or you're a small
Mm-hmm.
business, there's a lot of people out there. And you have to think
Mm-hmm.
about their employees.
That's a very
That
good
is
point.
millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
That is still a large chunk of people that aren't going to be required to get vaccinated, especially farmers. That there's a large chunk of farmers that don't work for a major corporation
Mm-hmm.
that aren't going to be forced to get vaccinated. And since they're in this rural area that has gone heavily to the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is the main base that is deciding not to get vaccinated, maybe there is still a big problem out there, even with this new requirement that Biden has put under the American people. That even people after this requirement, there is still going to be a lot of people left unvaccinated because it doesn't include small businesses. Because no small business that you consider small is going to have over 100 employees.
Yep. That's a very good. That's a very good point. And also, yeah, I just did this research, and around almost 30% of
So that's a lot
Americans
of
are
people.
self-employed,
Whether
of
I
working
mean, there's a small
Americans.
percentage of people that are getting money off of social media or small businesses, and before the pandemic.
And this was
So
before
you
the
just have to look at
pandemic.
the numbers, and you're like,
This was
yes,
before the.
the requirement Biden is now imposing on the American people is going to help tremendously, but there's still a lot of work to go and imposing,
Mhm.
um, I guess, more evidence for you to get vaccinated to
Yeah.
people that like
It
farmers and major anti-vax people. that have decided not to get vaccinated. And I think that's going to really hurt almost everything. And I think we're going to move on to our next point. It's going to be talking about the Justice Department. The Justice Department has sued Texas. And these are basically under the legal argument that uh, because of prior decisions by the Supreme Court, they are not allowed to impose a abortion ban, or it's not technically a ban. However, you can't get an abortion after 6 weeks, which is insane. And it's such a short time period that it's very difficult for you to get an abortion because you don't know if you're going to have a kid at that point. And they've, of course, sued. And Attorney General Merrick Garland, maybe he should have been a Justice Merrick Garland if Obama's nomination got through. But he has sued, and there was a press conference, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday about this, and he just laid out his argument. He was saying about, okay, it's because of this short time period about how the Supreme Court previously, of course, now they have a conservative majority in the Supreme Court, but previously they've marked Roe v. Wade as legal, and you're allowed to have an abortion. And there's not much to say about that. So, unless Sam, do you have anything else to add to this thing? Okay.
No. Yep. I mean, it's good. It's good that they're doing this, and it's good that they actually are supporting what women want. But yeah, I'm glad it's come to an end, and I'm glad this is kind of a
I
sign
don't know.
for
It
future
depends on what
states like
happens with
Florida
this
to
lawsuit.
back off.
If it ends and basically shrivels up and nothing happens, yes, Florida's going to come out with a law just like this. I think it's really just a waiting game at this point to see what happens with this lawsuit and see if other states decide to make bans on abortion in the future, whether it's Florida or Georgia or some other state, right? So we'll just have to wait and see, really. And then we have 2 more stories to go through, but now we're going to be talking we've gone over Joe Manchin earlier in this episode. However, we're going to go back to him. And we're going to be discussing really how much chaos he's really caused. Yes, I agree he is good for politics. If you don't have that one person that doesn't let the other party do whatever they want, yes, you have the filibuster on top of him. But if you don't have this person, whether it's Sinema or Manchin, which are 2 very moderate members of the Democratic Party, then I think the parties get out of hand at that point. With the small things that you can do without a filibuster-proof majority, or with, of course, 10 votes from the other party, it gets out of hand really quickly. The Democrats, when they're in the majority, can pass whatever they want as long as you don't need 60 votes. And the Republican Party can do whatever they want without the 60 votes. So you need a moderate. However, the amount of things that Manchin is blocking, Democrats have not had a trifecta in government since 2011, early 2011, basically just 2010. It's been a very long period of time. And the small window that we have to pass legislation, have Washington act as a place that things get done, it just is not happening because Joe Manchin is constantly blocking things. We're not. He hasn't approved
certain
stuff
things
with education, especially with Michael Bennett in Colorado. And there's things like this. Oh, the Democrats want to spend this much on so and so, but they're not allowed to spend 1.5 trillion or whatever the amount is because Joe Manchin is constantly blocking it. A lot of times, yes, this is good. It helps the party not go off the rails. The Republican Party, I don't think, have an equivalent. Yes, Susan Collins was opposed to many of the Republicans' ideas. But did it matter? Not really. She would go along with the Republican Party a big chunk of the time. Joe Manchin voted with the Republican Party more while Trump was in office than with the Democrat Party. Susan Collins, I'm afraid, did not do that. She voted with the Republican parties a vast majority of the time. Lisa Murkowski, another moderate, voted with the Republican Party a large amount of the time. A vast majority of the amount of the time. So I don't think there's an equivalent there. Yes, Joe Manchin, he is a Democrat. He has said he has a lot of disagreements with the Republican Party. But he is such a big roadblock for the Democrat Party to pass legislation. It's really a problem within the Democrat Party. Democrats have to be looking at 2022. If we're going to keep the Senate, we're going to have to keep every incumbent. They're going to have to win every incumbent seat. What are we going to pick up, though? What are Democrats going to pick up? Whether it's Pennsylvania or North Carolina, Wisconsin, or some other state, so they can basically invert basically what Joe Manchin's power in the Senate is. If you have another vote, you don't need Joe Manchin's vote. If you pick up 2, you don't need Krista Sinema's vote. So this is what they should be looking up in the future, because of the amount of mayhem Manchin has really caused in Washington. There's not much going on with Washington.
Yeah, Manchin has a lot of power, and it's good that a moderate has a lot of power to keep both parties in check. But the way he's using it, especially with the scandal we talked earlier, not saying he's directly involved, but the way he's
and I
using
think if
it
we're gonna
might
get
not
anything
be
passed
the
in
best.
Washington, whether it's the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, yes, you're gonna want moderates to stop extreme bills going through, but stuff that's simply helping the American people, it's a real problem with passing legislation. You cannot pass solid legislation without Joe Manchin's vote. Because, of course, you're going to need Republicans also on your side. If you don't have Joe Manchin, what out of the 50 Republicans are you going to choose? There's literally none to choose from. You're going to have Manchin. She's in the House.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. No, wait,
So,
she's a representative. I know,
Joe
I know.
Manchin
I'm just kidding.
is
Funny.
really in this
I'm going to
powerful
choose Mitch
position
McConnell.
where he can do whatever he
Funny.
wants. If he wants to pass this bill, he can. It's all up to him at this point. If he wants to pass a $15 minimum wage, he can. Get rid of the filibuster, he can. It's up to him. That's a lot of power to put on one person. At this point, it seems like he has more power than the Speaker of the House, and at this point, it probably is true. Yes, you can pass things to the House, but not the Senate.
And we know and as we were talking about earlier, we know he's not going to last much longer because of how moderates aren't being that much accepted anymore, especially with these fine lines. But the difference he can make in these couple years where we're expecting for Republicans to take
Nancy
back the
Pelosi,
House and
she can pass
possibly
bills
the
through
Senate,
the House,
like it's a big deal.
and it's really up to her in the House. But if she's going to vote for it, every other Democrat will, with some exceptions. The Senate, Joe Manchin does the exact same thing, except he's not the majority leader in the Senate. He's not. He's just one man in the Senate, and he decides whether or not this is going to pass. He decides if we're going to get rid of the filibuster. He decides if we're going to raise the minimum wage. He decides on whether or not the infrastructure bill is going to go through. He's that vote that all matters because of the 50-50 Senate, and he's causing so much mayhem, so much problems, that you really cannot get anything done in Washington. Divert his power, his political influence in the Senate. Pick up another seat for the Democrat Party, and then, yes, you can divert his power, and then you don't have to demand Manchin vote for this bill. And I think we're just going to have to see in 2022 what's going to happen. Regardless, I think Democrats are going to lose the House. And there's not much you can pass with a Democrat Senate and a Democrat White House and a Republican House. There's not much you can do. But for the time being, if Manchin continues to be this roadblock for the next year and a half, less than a year and a half, that Democrats are in this trifecta government, there's not much we're going to be able to pass because Joe Manchin is this major roadblock. And I think we're going to move on to our final point. We're already really far into the episode, but I guess we'll and this is about Florida. And Governor Ron DeSantis has imposed this ban on mask mandates for schools. And the court in Florida has striked down his executive order saying he did not have power to do this. They want to leave it up to county-wide, how it is in a lot of states. For example, where we are in North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper, a Democrat, has not imposed a mask mandate on every school in the entire state. It's by county-wide basis. We have to wear masks in school because our county has required it. Some counties do not require it. However, we are in a county where it does. In Florida, on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
Ron DeSantis has said, okay, no mask for the entire state. Doesn't matter where you live, no matter what county you are in, no matter what part of the state you're in, you're required not to require masks, and it's optional. It's up to the parents, which doesn't necessarily work at all, really. And
Mm-hmm. But also on the flip side, since the Pfizer vaccine has been FDA approved, people can start
well,
mandating that you have to get a
it,
vaccine to be in school since it's FDA approved,
but it's hard because
which is
school is you cannot just skip
counties
school.
can.
Elementary school, that's not optional. You are forced to either register to be homeschooled or go to a private school or be in a public education. You cannot just not have school education. And if not being vaccinated is your one issue, if you choose not to be vaccinated, then you just cannot go to school. Which is difficult for parents that truly believe that is
Mm-hmm.
in their best interest to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
their kid does not get vaccinated. Scientifically, it does not make sense, but a lot of parents truly believe that is the case. And it's going to be difficult for them.
Mm-hmm. It, and so you got well. I feel like that also helped these parents come to terms with how crazy their argument is. Like and outweigh like, do I really think this vaccine is unsafe, or am I just being kind of
But of
weird?
course, right now, there
Am
are
I just trying to go
vaccines that
along
you
with
are
all whatever
required to
my
get if you
other
want to go to school.
crazy
And you
hippie
can
friends
just
are
add
going
COVID
along with?
19 along to that. The flu vaccine, that is not required. A lot of people want that to be like the flu
Yeah.
vaccine. You don't have to get the flu vaccine. I'm not going to get a flu vaccine.
Yep.
You don't have to get a
Mm-hmm.
COVID vaccine. I'm not going to get a COVID vaccine.
Well, the difference between the flu and the COVID and COVID is if you get the flu shot, if you get the flu shot, you're protecting yourself.
Well,
But
not
you're not
necessarily.
endangering
If you
others.
get the
If you
flu,
don't
you
get
can
the
still
COVID
spread the flu,
vaccine, you're
regardless
endangering others,
if the person next to you is
which is the
vaccinated for the
difference.
flu.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least you'll be safer. And the thing that's when you get the flu
No,
shot.
it's the
But the
same.
difference
It's
is when you
exactly the
get the
same.
COVID shot. If someone
It's literally
isn't
the same.
if let me get this straight. It's pretty similar, but
That is the
the difference
difference, but in
is
terms of
that
how it
COVID
spreads,
is
it's basically
happening
the
year
same.
round, and
But
COVID is probably to a bigger
this is big
scale.
news because a lot of counties and
Mm-hmm.
school districts
Mm-hmm.
have already just not followed this executive order that
Mm-hmm.
Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has imposed. They have forced schools to have a mask mandate, and now that the court in Florida has said it's unconstitutional, we're just gonna have to see what happens from here. Because Ron DeSantis has done a what do you call it? Countersuing? No, not countersuing. Help me out, Sam. I don't remember what it's called, but he's just basically strike back at the court. I should probably know what that's called. Saying, okay, actually, it is lawful to have an executive order that bans mass mandates. There's not much to say other than we'll see what happens. That's a lot of what's happening today. With the EpiPen scandal, we'll see what happens. With Biden's new vaccine mandates, we'll see what happens. With the Justice Department lawsuit, we'll see what happens. With what happens with Manchin, we'll see what
Yeah,
happens. And then,
Joe
of course, with
Manchin.
Florida,
Jeez.
we'll just have to see what happens to what
Manchin.
the not Supreme Court, the Florida courts are saying. We'll just have to see what happens, right? So unless Sam has anything to add on, I think we'll finish up and wrap up the episode for today.
Yep. Yep.
Anyways, I want you to tune in tomorrow for the 9/11 special. We're going to be chatting about
Yep. I'm done. Thanks for
9/11
watching.
and what it means today and how politicians still use 9/11 20th anniversary, because it was 2001 and now it's 2021.
It's the
So
20th
hopefully you tune in for that. We will try
anniversary.
to get Spotify pretty soon, so this will be uploaded on YouTube. I do not believe this one will be on Spotify. However, the one on Tuesday, I hope will be. Now that I've said that in a video, it kind of forces us to go ahead and get it done. Put it on Spotify. Yes. And Anyways,
If this segment
make
is
sure to tune
still
in
out
tomorrow for
there,
the
it
9/11
should be on
special.
Spotify.
Thank you for watching.
The next episode.
See y'all then.